She had never considered the girl her own. To her, she was nothing more than an unwanted shadow, a burden she was forced to bear. Ever since the girl's mother had passed away, she had treated her with nothing but disdain, while her own son lived in comfort, dressed in the finest clothes and eating the best meals. The girl was given nothing but scraps and endless chores. From dawn till dusk, she worked tirelessly. Yet no matter how hard she tried, nothing was ever enough. The house was filled with the sounds of commands, harsh words that pierced deeper than any wound. Her hands, worn and cracked from endless labor, scrubbed the floors, washed the clothes, and cooked meals that she was never allowed to eat in peace. Any mistake, no matter how small, was met with a slap or a scolding. The people in the village saw what was happening, but no one dared to interfere. She was just a stepdaughter, an orphan without protection. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The suffering never ended. The girl learned to expect nothing from life. She ate in silence, worked in silence, cried in silence, even when the nights grew cold, and she had only a thin cloth to cover herself. She did not complain. She had accepted that kindness was something meant for others, never for her. Then the illness came. At first, it was just a small weakness, a slight fever that she ignored. But soon it became unbearable. Her body felt as if it were burning from the inside, her strength slipping away with each passing moment. She collapsed in the corner of the hut, hoping for mercy, but there was none. She was given no medicine, no warm food, no comforting hand on her forehead. Instead of care, she was met with cruelty. She was told that if she was weak, it was her own fault, that if she died, no one would mourn her. She tried to hold back her tears, but they came anyway, soaking into the hard floor beneath her. For days she lay there, caught between life and death. She heard the laughter of the family from the other room, the smell of food that she was never allowed to touch. Hunger gnawed at her, but the little food she was given barely kept her alive. One morning, everything changed. The village was shaken by an unexpected event. The sound of drums echoed through the air, signaling an important arrival. The king's guards entered the village, their presence filling the air with tension. The people gathered, whispering amongst themselves. A message had been received, a vision that spoke of a girl who had suffered much yet remained pure of heart, a girl who had endured hardship but had not allowed bitterness to consume her soul. She alone could save the kingdom from ruin. The villagers watched in shock as the guards searched through the crowd. They looked at each young girl carefully, their eyes scanning for the one described in the vision. When their gaze landed on the frail girl standing at the back, their leader stepped forward. She was the one. The stepmother, seeing what was happening, rushed forward in protest. She argued, shouted, tried to convince them that the girl was nothing, that she was useless, that she did not deserve such an honor. But the guards did not listen. The king had spoken. For the first time in her life, she was taken away from suffering and brought into a world of kindness. The palace, with its grand walls and golden halls, was unlike anything she had ever seen. The air smelled of sweet flowers. The food was rich and warm, and for the first time, she was given clothes that did not itch or tear at the seams. The king, wise and just, saw something in her that others had ignored. He saw the pain she had endured, the strength she had carried in silence. He saw that despite all she had suffered, her heart had not been poisoned by hatred. In time, she became more than just a girl from the village. She was embraced as a daughter, her presence bringing peace and prosperity to the kingdom. Fate, however, never forgets. The woman who had tormented her for years soon found herself at the mercy of hardship. The wealth she once relied on vanished. The comfort she had taken for granted disappeared, and she was left with nothing. Misfortune followed her every step, and soon, she and her son became the very thing she once despised: poor, helpless, begging for kindness. The day finally came when she could no longer endure the suffering. With no other choice, she swallowed her pride and made her way to the palace gates. The journey was long, her body weak from hunger, her clothes torn and dirty. The guards barely recognized the woman who once stood tall with arrogance. She knelt on the cold stone ground, her voice trembling as she begged for forgiveness. She pleaded for a chance to make things right, for mercy, for even the smallest act of kindness. The girl she once despised now stood before her, dressed in royal robes, her posture calm and graceful. She had suffered, yet she had not let bitterness consume her. She had been wronged, yet she chose mercy over hatred. The past could not be changed, but the future was still hers to shape. With a single word, she could have denied the woman's request, could have turned her away and made her suffer as she had once suffered. But she did not. Instead, she chose to forgive. Food and shelter were provided, not out of obligation, but out of a heart that refused to carry hate. The woman who had once been so cruel now stood humbled, realizing too late that the greatest strength of all was kindness. In the end, it was not power, nor wealth, nor cruelty that triumphed. It was kindness that reigned supreme.